Today the Tour bids farewell to the Atlantic Ocean. Shore operations began in Saint-Gilles, and the M34 fleet was hauled and placed on trailers all throughout the day. The program was rigorous and efficient. Sails were folded and neatly stored. Masts were taken down, and cranes hauled each M34 onto their trailer. The work took each team roughly 3 hours, and the public were out in full force, curious to see the bottom side of the sleek M34s. But the boat captains never stopped working, taking the opportunity to check their spars and blades after 700 nautical miles of frenzied racing down the Atlantic coast of France. And now the fleet is on the road again. It's 1,000 miles from Saint-Gilles to Rosses, Spain, and if you're out on the road tomorrow, it'll be a convoy you can't miss. Despite a few flat tires, the sailors and boats of the Tour de France smoothly navigated France's highway system from Saint-Gilles to Rosses, Spain. No racing today. The crews are busy prepping their M34s for the Mediterranean segment of the Tour. Boat captains broke out the wet sanders, polished down hulls, and tweaked to their heart's content. Eventually, every boat was plucked from their trailer and craned into the Mediterranean Sea. The fleet is dockside in Rosses, Spain. A quiet afternoon without event allowed the teams to work out their final details before the on-water hostilities resumed tomorrow morning with a full day of import racing. Today in Rosses, the fleet sailed 2 import races, and again, Groupama stole the day, finishing first in both races. Frank's boys are red-hot upwind, but the real victory belonged to the Oman Sail Program, who finished second in both races, sailing glued to Groupama's stern from start to finish. Great starts, spotless maneuvers, and tight mark roundings. The city of Rosses was smiling on the Omanis. The regular leaders weren't so fortunate. Courier Dunkirk and Sodebo were both called over early in race 2. They finished 10th and 11th. Breton Credit Mutuel wasn't looking so hot either. Maybe a few too many tapas and mojitos last night. The first event in the Mediterranean segment was a boon for the rookie teams. Brussels BE Martinique sailed their best race of the Tour, finishing 4th in race 2, followed by TPM and Normandy. Tomorrow, the fleet leaves Spain and races 57 nautical miles to Cresson, France. The crews of the Tour de France à la Voile left Rosses early this morning for Cresson, France. The wind was a no-show, so the fleet motored along the Catalan coast, letting the sailors kick back and relax a few extra hours underneath a blazing sun. Around 11 in the morning, the wind trickled up to 6 knots, and Race Committee launched a starting sequence. The fleet hoisted spinnakers and sailed the remaining 41 nautical miles to Cresson. Courier Dunkirk soared ahead and led the fleet for many miles. Close behind, Sodebo, Normandy, and Breton Credit Mutuel. And as always, Groupama kept close behind in the hunt. Off Port de Cap, Groupama closed the gap, sailing focused and aggressively in the light breeze, changing spinnakers at least 4 times. Franck and the boys refused to let go, and they cut the line in Cresson, capturing yet another first-place finish. It was a hot summer day in Cresson. The Mediterranean looked like a sheet of glass. so when race committee threw up the AP flag, naturally, the sailors went for a swim. As the temperature rose, the sea breeze filled in. The fleet eventually left the dock, and despite the light winds, race committee pulled off 3 races. Every step, every maneuver was amplified by the slack conditions, and the sailors worked smoothly, carrying out every action to keep the sails filled. Today, Groupama forfeited the regular spot in first to 3 other teams. Sodebo captured race 1 just ahead of TPM. Oman finished first in race 2 ahead of Bretagne Crédit Mutuel and Dunkirk, and Ville de Genève took the gun in race 3, just a few lengths ahead of Frank and the boys. So when the sea looks like a lake, leave it to the Swiss to take the day. Today in Grisson, with the Mediterranean as their playground, the sailors of the Tour de France à la Voile butted heads, racing a single import race. But, per usual, Frank and the boys ruled the schoolyard, steamrolling the rest of the fleet to capture first place. 2 of the crews hit the dock with something to be proud of. Nantes Saint-Nazaire, skippered by Courtin Duguet, and the German entry Iskarine, finished 4th and 5th respectively. In Grisson, dockside, the sailors were greeted with a hero's welcome, and before they left, they were seen off by a large audience at the race village. Photos, autographs, handshakes, the crowd provided the perfect confidence boost the fleet needed for the next offshore rally to the Seine. And they'll need it, because tonight at 6 p.m. the fleet squares off in the final distance race, scored with a factor of 3, 123 nautical miles to La Seine-sur-Mer, probably more than 20 hours of racing. Groupama seems to have stolen the cake from the very start, but there's still one hell of a race to be won, beginning in 2nd place.